Hello, welcome to the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art's Art Trek. This is our way of bringing art directly to you at your school. My name is Golda, my pronouns are she, her, and I have the privilege of showing you this art show or exhibition today. Let's get started. Welcome inside our moving museum. As our name suggests, we show contemporary art. Contemporary art is the art of our time. It's new and the artists are alive, creating work that we can relate to in 2021 and 2022. The artist that we collaborated or worked with for this show is named Angie Smith. In 2015, Angie founded a project called Stronger Shines the Light Inside that is still going today as a nonprofit. That is what we named this exhibition after. Stronger Shines the Light Inside tells us the stories of refugees in our community and the unique challenges and experiences that they have had coming to the United States. Let's look more closely at this wall text to learn even more about the art and the process. Here we read more about Angie and the reason that she started this project. So in 2015, as she was living in Boise, Idaho, a lot of refugees moved into her neighborhood. A refugee is someone that has to leave their home and country because it becomes too dangerous to stay there. There are lots of reasons someone might be in this situation. Perhaps they're targeted because of their religious or political beliefs, their skin color, the language they speak, or maybe a war broke out or an environmental disaster that made it unsafe for everyone in that area. The safe place that people find and then can live permanently is called a host country, and the United States is just one of many host countries that welcomes refugees. Angie became friends with these people that had moved as refugees from all over the world. But she was very aware that there were some residents in Idaho that didn't know how to make these newcomers feel welcome. So Angie was motivated to use her photographic talents to make her community a more inclusive place where everyone was curious about each other's experiences and empathetic to their situation. So Angie decided after she befriended these people that had sought refuge in her community that she would take their portrait and interview them, asking questions about what it was like moving to the United States. She then created pop-up exhibitions throughout the city. So you'd be walking around downtown Boise and unexpectedly walk into an art space and be confronted with really large-scale portraits or photographs of people. Then off to the side, you could read about that person, learn their name, where they were from, what they liked to do, what it was like for them. This was really impactful for Angie's community because everyone got to learn more about one another's stories, and it made the environment a more inclusive space where everyone felt at home like they belonged, rebuilding their new lives. We invited Angie to do the same thing in Utah. She spent 6 weeks in Salt Lake and the surrounding areas and got to meet hundreds of our refugee friends. Of those hundreds of photographs she took, we selected 4 that we're going to discuss today. There are 2 numbers that are really important though to understanding resettlement. Resettlement practices just mean the help or resources that people receive to find a host country where they'll be safe. Every single year around the world, there are an average of 65 million people that become displaced. Of those millions of people, only 1% will find the help they need to get to a host country. All the refugees that come to Utah and become our neighbors go through one of 2 agencies, the International Rescue Committee and Catholic Community Services. The grown-ups that work there, then their entire job is to help refugees get used to living in Utah, understand our culture, transportation, find apartments or housing, and jobs. The other 99% that are waiting for a safe place to live typically wait in a refugee camp. This is a place where many people gather as they seek refuge and resources. The typical size tent that they would stay in during that time is actually about as big as this truck that I'm standing in right now. Imagine living in this space with 12 other people. When they come to the United States, it's often very difficult, and we're going to hear directly from one person, the first person that Angie met in Idaho, all about what it was really like moving from her country in Kenya to Boise, Idaho, where she still lives. So we'll watch this short video about Halima and then talk about her experience.
My name is Halima Hamoud. I was born in one of the camps in Kenya. Coming to America, I was just all new and confusing. The first month, I think I was just crying because I miss my dad. My mom would be like, oh, it's okay, he's gonna come. But like, he never came. Back when I was in the camp, I knew I was my skin color, but I didn't realize what it means, you know, because I lived in a camp where it was all black people. When I was there, I felt this closeness that I could talk to anyone. But when I came here, like I had to learn what I was. I just remember like going to school, all my classmates were white, and I felt like different. I didn't have like anyone to talk to. When I got to elementary, like 6th grade, this bullying started, and like I remember them making fun of my hijab. It was in 7th grade, it was junior high, and I made my friend, two best friends in gym. When I started communicating them, that's when I learned English, and like I felt that closeness again. And they didn't look at me differently just because I wear the hijab. I want to work with people. I want to work with people that aren't able to have a voice. Coming to America is very difficult. And each like change or progress you make, even though to my classmates it's like, okay, but to me it's like, wow, I got this far, you know?
Congratulations, beautiful night.
I'm proud of the person that I have turned out.
The first thing that Halima shared was where she was from and her name. She was born in a refugee camp in Kenya, and it's not uncommon to spend your entire childhood waiting in a refugee camp. Some people even spend more than 10 years while they're waiting for the help they need to go to a new place. She did receive the help she needed with her mom and was able to move to Boise, Idaho. Suddenly, she was in a new space surrounded by people that didn't speak the same language as her and that looked different than her. Think about the things specifically she says that made it challenging in her new home. You might have thought about the language barrier that she experienced or the bullying. Her classmates simply didn't understand why she wore a hijab as part of her Islamic religion. As a Muslim girl, she chose to wear the hijab and was teased for it. But the turning point for her that she did start to feel more at home was two best friends she made in gym class. Think about the ways that you can be a good friend to people in your classroom. The last thing that Halima shares is how she feels about herself. She concludes with, "I am proud of the person I've become." That is such a powerful statement and talks about the resiliency that all refugees have. After going through so much, even when it's hard, they continue, and that's what being resilient is. Let's take a closer look at those 4 images we discussed that Angie took in Utah and what these individuals are like and have achieved. We'll begin with Ozma. Meet Ozma. As we look at Ozma's photograph and look at the visual clues we have to learn a little bit about her, I want you to keep in mind the reason that Stronger Shines the Light Inside was born. Angie wanted this to be an opportunity for the viewers, the people looking at the photograph, to learn about the person through their perspective, and it's told through the lens of photography. So the story is framed through this wall text that tells us Ozma's name, a quote from her, and then what she has accomplished since the photograph was taken and her life in Utah. Look at the visual elements of this photograph to learn something about Ozma and her hobbies. Perhaps the first element you notice is her red sash that reads Miss Africa Utah 2017. So you could guess that Ozma won a competition about 4 years ago, and she's even crowning this beautiful tiara on her head that sparkles in the light. Think about how Angie is directing your focus to Ozma. How does the background, the things that appear far away, compare to the foreground, the things that seem the closest? You might notice that the background landscape is a little bit blurred, whereas Ozma is very clear. Think about where Ozma is looking. Is she looking right at the camera or off to the side? What do you think she's looking at? Just like we can't learn everything about a person based on their physical appearance, we can't learn everything based on these clues that we're seeing in a single photograph. Let's learn more about Ozma. Ozma was born in Utah, and her family is a refugee family that moved from Somalia. That's a country on the east side of Africa. Ozma won this competition, Miss Africa Utah, because she's very smart and had an ambitious goal that if she won, she would use the opportunity and platform to teach people about Somali culture and healthcare. Ozma has now moved to California to study healthcare at Stanford and works as a surgical technologist. She has worked really hard to make healthcare accessible to all people and to teach people about her culture. Let's move on to the second photograph of Haydar. Meet Haydar. Haydar moved in his late 20s from Iran, and while he was waiting to be resettled, he spent time in Turkey and Iraq. Looking at this photograph, you can probably guess what Haydar does for a living and what he enjoys. You're right, it's painting. He's an artist. Let's look more closely at this photograph to learn even more. Haydar's quote that we included is, "Painting is like a friend. Painting is like a world that I want to live in." Can you relate to that? When you do art, does it make you feel happy and peaceful? How do you think Haydar is feeling in this photograph? What kind of pose is he in? Does he look comfortable and casual? You might notice that he's not wearing any shoes. So what could that tell you about where he is in this moment? He's probably somewhere that's really familiar and is his own, and you'd be right. He's in his own art studio in this photograph. A really important aspect of Angie's process is working together with the individual to choose where to take the photo, what they'll be wearing, what pose they're in, and little details like that. All of these decisions tell us something about Haydar. We can see that he's proud of his artwork and decided to surround himself with these large, colorful paintings. Think about what adjectives or descriptive words you could use for his paintings. I think they're vibrant, abstract, colorful, vivid, and creative. What do you think? Haydar is a friend of mine, and he helped us make decisions about the art trek. The first time we met together, he told me about his first experience visiting an American museum. It happened to be the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art. He said when he visited, he was surprised to see that we have freedom of expression, meaning there are no rules and restrictions to what we can create. We are free to use our imagination and creativity any way we wish. Haydar said seeing this freedom of expression and inclusion in action inspired him to keep going as an artist, even as he was learning English and getting used to the culture here. Your teacher has links to videos that you can hear directly from Haydar and even draw with him. Let's move on to our group portrait. This photograph differs from the other three because there's more than one person. All four of these women are from the same place or area, Thailand and Burma, which you can see on the map here. These women are from an ethnic minority called Karen. The Karen people have been targeted since the 1960s. Some of their villages have been burned down and many of the people have been killed and forced to leave. Even through all of this movement and loss, they've been able to pass down this traditional weaving technique from generation to generation. Let's look more closely at the photograph. In this photograph, you see a very dynamic diagonal from the thousands of threads of purple and blue. The women are weaving on a traditional backstrap loom. Take a look at the woman in blue on the right. You can see that her loom hooks behind her back. On the left, you can see what they have anchored it to. In their native countries of Burma and Thailand, they would hook them up to bamboo reeds inside their homes. But in Utah, we don't create houses made of bamboo. So they have made adaptations to Western culture and decided to weave outside, and what they had available that was the right height were these car seats. You can see from the clothes that they're wearing that the patterns and design are very intricate and beautiful. Depending on the weaver's experience, it can take up to months to create a single article of clothing. Are there art practices that are part of your household or culture? How did you learn them, and why are they important to you? Again, Angie has blurred the background so that we focus on the individuals in the foreground. And the only person looking right at the camera is the woman towards the right. How do you think she is feeling in this photograph? I think she looks proud and welcoming, that although this is her own space and she's mastered this craft, she is very excited to share it with us. Remember that Angie has a relationship with all of the people that she photographs, so before she gets behind the camera, she gets to become their friend and establish a level of trust to enter their spaces and learn about them. Your teacher has a video if you want to learn even more about Karen weaving and the technique they use. We're now on to our final photograph. Let's meet William. In William's portrait, he's not alone. He's joined by this cute little goat. Like Ozma's portrait, William's is vertical in orientation. Let's take a closer look. William moved when he was 5 years old from Tanzania with his entire family. Because he was the youngest in his family, he learned English the fastest and helped his family members learn as well. His father started a chapter or club through 4-H, which is a nationwide program where students can learn about taking care of animals and growing food. William participated and said it taught him a lot about patience and leadership, and that's why you see the goat in his portrait here. Instead of standing up tall, far away in height from his goat, William is crouching down next to it. What position or level do you think Angie was in to get this shot? As you can see, it's not very angled. It looks like she was the same level as William. So she is probably crouching lower to the ground as well. William is looking straight at the camera for this photograph. How do you think he might be feeling in this moment? Since this photograph was taken, William has graduated from high school and received a full ride scholarship from the Utah Jazz basketball team to study architecture at the University of Utah. Architects are people that design buildings. Now that we've looked at all 4 photographs, I want you to think about what your photograph might look like if you had the same invitation. This photograph should represent you, what you like to do, and tell someone a little bit about you if all they could see was your photograph before meeting you. What do you think you would choose to wear? Where would you take your photograph? Would you surround yourself with things that are meaningful to you? Do you think the photograph would be enough to learning about you, or would you want someone to become your friend and ask questions in addition? Thank you for imagining that scenario with me. I think your photographs would be really amazing and tell an awesome story about who you are. I want you to use your imagination one more time before we say goodbye. And I want you to think about how all of us experience the world through our senses. So things that we touch, see, hear, smell, and taste. Because we're just one person, we can't see everything and understand it all. Just like a single camera can only capture one image at a time and only see so far. So I want you to imagine, and it might help you to close your eyes as you do, the 5 people that are most influential in your life. Maybe the 5 people that if you needed advice, you would go to them. This is your sphere of influence, the people that impact you and the people that you impact. Can you see these people in your mind's eye? Think about these people. Do they all look the same? Do they all think the same? Are they all from the same place? Are they all really similar to you? If they are, I want you to think about how you can widen your sphere of influence and make it bigger. Maybe you widen your circle of friends and go out of your way to make a new friend in your classroom that might be different than you. Maybe you read new books that have a perspective you've never thought of before. As we are open-minded and curious about other people and their experiences, we can know what it's like to be empathetic. This is when we can use our imagination to understand what someone else might be feeling. This allows us to be an even better friend and to widen that sphere of influence and the lens that we see the world through. Just like a camera lens, it can be widened so that we can see the full picture and be part of making that picture and world even better. Just like Angie used her creative talents to make where she lived a place where everyone felt at home, you can do the same thing at home and in your classroom and in your life. However you decide to be creatively kind, we thank you for doing that. The Utah Museum of Contemporary Art in downtown Salt Lake City is somewhere where you are always welcome. We hope to see you there, and thank you so much for coming to our art trek today and learning a little bit about art with me. See you next time.